The secret is out. The all-new Everybody Wins Live Sportsbook is here, and it's what you've been waiting on. The action never stops. Live odds, live bets, live excitement. The biggest sportsbook is waiting on you. Your team, your moment, your win. Everybody Wins Live Sportsbook, built for players. Welcome to the Accredited, powered by 10th year seniors here on Guardian Radio 96.9. I'm Ronaldo, flying solo in the studio today, and also still flying on the emotional high of watching Team Bahamas get that big W over Jamaica. We're going to talk a lot about that extensively, of course. But before we get to any of that, this program is brought to you by Everybody Wins Live Sportsbook, your favorite sportsbook and mine for obvious reasons. Yes, I say that as a homer because they do so much for us, but that doesn't mean that I'm wrong. Everybody Wins Live Sportsbook is the best place for you to play, for you to ply your trade in this sports betting field, whether it's same game parlays or just the traditional parlays. Whatever you want, wherever in the world books provide the odds, you can find it on Everybody Wins Live Sportsbook. They're the reason why you have this new and improved 2-hour edition of the Accredited. 2 hours. That's a lot of us talking. Well, a lot of me talking, but y'all get the drill. So let's get into what is making the news immediately. The last thing you saw is sometimes, it's okay to be a prisoner of the moment. The last thing you saw is probably the best thing you saw. That's the situation in this case right here. So let's set the stage. We all remember summer 24. The Bahamas senior men's national basketball team literally becomes the talk of international basketball. I'm telling you, this was so much bigger than the Bahamas. This was so much bigger than the Caribbean, the Americas region. We literally became the talk of the basketball world because there was no way this small country, this minute population of just over 400,000 with no traditional basketball infrastructure, I'm talking like from grassroots straight up to professional level, there is no way we're supposed to be able to compete on the stages with these particular countries. And not just compete, but beat teams ranked in the top 20. It's not supposed to happen. But that's exactly what did because of circumstances of events that, yeah, we were fortunate on a lot. But yes, it took a lot of building as well. But the Bahamas' run at the Olympic qualifying tournament, which fell just 8 points short against Spain. Think about that. Spain is a basketball powerhouse. For a lot of my generation, you saw Spain give Team USA everything they could in that gold medal game, and Kobe Bryant ended up being the hero. That is the country that the Bahamas was going toe-to-toe with. That's where we were in terms of the basketball landscape. Take it back even before that. Once Eric Gordon became official and we beat Argentina twice in Argentina at the Olympic pre-qualifying tournament, that's when the eyebrows were raised. That's when you had people like Andres Nocioni, if you remember him during his tenure with the Bulls and as a longstanding member of Team Argentina, that's when you had a lot of people try to downplay what the Bahamas was doing. But there was only so much you could downplay because the results were speaking for themselves. So seemingly, and it didn't happen overnight. It did not happen overnight, but seemingly to the rest of the world, the Bahamas went from an afterthought to a legitimate basketball contender. That's setting the stage. So no longer the afterthoughts. We go from being the people that were just around to actually having a target on your back. So expectations are high for Team Bahamas for this next cycle. And this next cycle leading to LA 2028 begins with the World Cup, because if you qualify for the World Cup, that path to the Olympics is just so much easier and so much more seamless. You get to the World Cup, you qualify early, then you don't have to go through the pre-qualifying tournament or the OQT like we did in 2024. But that sets the stage here. You start with the you start with the World Cup qualifiers. And we know we got the region of death because you know how difficult the Americas is. And clearly you see how difficult it is because in window one, right away, we had a back-to-back against Canada. And me and John always debated back and forth on, is it better for us to get the 2 games against Canada out the way early or have to play them later on? Because Canada is right up there with the USA and France, however you want to change the order of 2 and 3. I mean, they're pretty much going to be challenging the USA. They got the MVP of the NBA. They got SGA. They have a stacked roster, just like Team USA and France. So you know what Canada is bringing to the table. And they are one of those powerhouses that have the infrastructure from grassroots all the way up to the professional level, like I talked about, that we don't have. So when you go against Canada, dog, you kind of know what you're getting into. So game 1 against Canada, they blow us out here at home. But game 2 on the road, for some reason, we always play so much better on the road. And that's going to take us to Thursday night. We always play so much better on the road. And we end up playing Canada really tough, losing by just 6. And that's a game that we didn't have Kai Jones. So we took those 2 early L's, and it looks like a really daunting task headed into window 2 moving forward. At the same time, the same way we say the Bahamas came from out of nowhere, Jamaica, they became the talk of the basketball world because they had players like Norman Powell committing to the program, other players like AJ DeBansa, and even there was buzz about the Thompson twins playing for Jamaica. It's not going to happen because there is nobody or any entity in the world that is as strict with eligibility rules as FIBA. So all of that's not going to happen. But it was a great pipe dream for people to follow and for people to look into. But it started the conversation. It started the buzz. And so Jamaica goes out and they win their first 2 games. So our group for the FIBA America qualifiers, it's Canada, it's Jamaica, it's Puerto Rico, and it's us. So Jamaica wins their first 2 games, and they are now 1 win away from getting to qualifying. All this sets the stage for Thursday night. So in Kingston, the country is now rallying behind basketball because it's something they haven't seen. They have bobsledding at the Olympics and don't have basketball at this level. But people love winners, and they have a reason to now rally behind this program headed into Thursday, because if they win this game, it all but assures qualification. And the only thing standing in their way is the Bahamas. So it's not like they're going against Canada or Puerto Rico, who are established powers that have pro basketball, a litany of pro basketball players and pro basketball in their countries. They're going against us. And I know they see us as equals with this. We ain't equals. I don't know why y'all thought that. And the team showed why. So let's take it to Thursday night's win. The Bahamas, of course, won 99-96. And the star of that game, Franco Miller Jr. And his case in particular is such a special story for this season. Up and down collegiate career, has his first year of pro basketball in Spain pretty good, but then has the opportunity to go to the G League. Visa issues got in the way of that, caused him to get there late, get his season going late. But headed towards the All-Star break, you started to see the signs. 2 consecutive weeks, he set new career highs. So the confidence was up. You just feel closer to the NBA when you're playing in the G League rather than in the FEB Segunda in Spain. The confidence is there. You could see it in the way he plays. And so going into this game, Franco was always that point guard that was on the floor when you had the NBA guys. And so he's been in the role where he's been run the offense guy, set up in the corner. If I got an open three, knock it down. Maybe looking for me to get somewhere between 10 to 12.7 assists because I'm playing with the big dogs. He's been in that position. But with those guys not there, could he step up and be the focal point and be the star? Well, we already know the answer. Absolutely, he can. Absolutely. 32 points, shot 6 for 13 from three-point range. And that three he hit that put the game away, it's not Eric Gordon's threes, but it has to rank. It has to be a top 5 greatest play in Bahamian basketball history. Just off the top of my head, you got Eric Gordon's threes. You have Roma Dean's game winner for that really talented under-17 team. You had Franco hitting a game winner against Cuba in the embryonic stages of this program really coming out of the region and becoming this international powerhouse that it is now. But anyway, so the game starts. Of course, Jamaica is going to have that high energy. And it was a game that had nine ties, 60 lead changes. It was going back and forth. But Franco came out hot from early in the game, and anytime Jamaica went on a run or tried to extend that lead behind that home crowd, he was there with the answer. He was there with the answer every time. It did it in several ways because it wasn't just the threes. He showed the ability to run an offense and be a guy that can play off the ball and be a finisher. So I think what was interesting with this was Franco, who's usually a point guard, showed a whole lot of combo guard duties in this as well, because Garvin Clark, who also plays in Spain, did an incredible job running the show. 13 points and 9 assists. And in international basketball, I know we're used to NBA basketball, so we hear those assist numbers and it seems kind of feasible. You generally don't get those high assist numbers in international basketball play. So him going for 13 and 9, placing that into context, that's an incredible game. The key to this team, the key to this window, and I remember how excited John was when they got the word, was being able to get Tavario Miller on this team. Because I contest to this day, if we had Tavario Miller in Spain, we beat Spain and we go on to the Olympics. If we had more depth up front, we beat Spain and we go on to the Olympics. That would have happened. But not crying over spilled milk. We're looking towards LA 2028. So Tavario Miller was there against Jamaica, huge part of that team, finished with 22 points, tied for the team high with 9 rebounds. Isaiah Mobley also played a big role in this, 8 points, 9 rebounds. Sammy Hunter scored 12. So Jamaica slim lead at the end of the first quarter, led by 2. Halftime, led by 2. Third quarter, they took a 4-point lead, headed into the fourth. And in the fourth quarter, the Bahamas just clamped down defensively. So every quarter was scoring in the 20s, and that's just how the game was being run. And then we limited Jamaica to just 15 points in that fourth quarter. And everyone contributed in that comeback. When Garvin Clark hit the 3 at around the 3:30 mark that gave the Bahamas the lead for good, they never relinquished it. So the score was 93-96. Jamaica had a great defensive stand. This was just about a minute or so remaining. The Bahamas it was ball out of bounds. The Bahamas had like 2 seconds left on the shot clock. Shaw Davis was inbounding. And Franco comes off a screen, gets it to Miller, who only had enough time to turn and shoot. And this was from deep. This was from Curry range. This was from well beyond the three-point arc. Turns, makes that 3 pretty much a straightaway 3, top of the key. Gives the Bahamas a 6-point lead with under a minute left to play. And to win that game on the road, that just speaks volumes about this program. And we say it here all the time on our platform. And I think more people are starting to realize it. Yes, we love to pay attention when you have the the big guns in there, when you have the NBA guys, when you have Buddy and DA and VJ and EG, yes, when they're there, it feels different and everyone can get behind that. But at the same time, none of that is even possible if you don't have these guys being superstars in these windows. These games are the one that actually keeps Bahamas basketball alive. Because you're only going to get the NBA players during a certain point of the year. And this is why you have to have an overall structure and you have to have an overall program. And this is why you have to be at these tournaments and you can't back out. And you got to find the funding. And you got to find ways to be able to be there because this can happen. Obviously, when you're a fan of national teams, it's an amazing feeling just to watch that for all of these guys, man. But for this backcourt in particular, this backcourt of Franco and Garvin, because you know how difficult the politics of Division I college basketball is. And I always felt like they never got a fair shake and they never got their just due. Like when Franco was at Ole Miss, I remember him getting injured. And as a freshman, this was at a point where it's tough to believe this, but I was trying to think, are the racial tensions in America more heightened now than they were a few years ago when he was a freshman? Because this was when the Colin Kaepernick, I say controversy in air quotes because there's nothing controversial about what he stood for and what he was saying. It was only the simplest thing in the world. Hey, try not to kill unarmed minorities. Very simple thing to follow for most people, but that's neither here nor there. But I remember there was a game at Ole Miss and Franco was one of several players to kneel during the anthem. He plays for Ole Miss. Played for Ole Miss. I still don't say the mascot of that school. No matter how many stories I have to write or speak about Coach Yo, as amazing as she is, I will say Ole Miss 1,000 times before I say that school's mascot. And this was the place in Oxford, Mississippi, where a young Bahamian freshman knelt during the anthem with some other players. Like that showed an incredible amount of courage. And then he ends up leaving, ends up going to FGCU. And I still never felt like he got the opportunities he should have as the player that he is. He's also one of those few players that got better towards the end of his career, and I think he's even better now as a pro. Same thing with Garvin playing for Akron. Coming up through the high school system in Ohio. So for all intents and purposes, for them, he's a hometown guy. He showed promise as a freshman. Thought he would get a better opportunity as a sophomore. Things didn't work out there. Ends up going to D2, gets his opportunity to go pro. So for guys like this who may not get this big of a role when the NBA players are down, it means so much more to them. It means a whole lot to Isaiah Mobley. I saw an interview he did after the first time he played for the Bahamian national team. And this is somebody that's played spot minutes in the NBA, has played in the G League, has played major D1 basketball at USC. But he was almost driven to tears about how much it meant to play for Bahamas basketball and how he was embraced by that entire community. Evan, I'm sure he told you about it. Could have two Mobleys, I'm just saying. But that just goes to show you how much this means to these players and what it should mean to us. You see what's happening in the NBA right now. Do you think, I mean, obviously I can't speak for them, but we got enough context clues to be able to make this judgment. Do you think Buddy would care more about what happens with Bahamas basketball or with the Atlanta Hawks? Yeah, that's his payday. All things being considered, the payday is happening anyway. Does he care more about the Hawks or Bahamas basketball? And we're going to talk a lot more about this later, but DeAndre Ayton, you think he cares more about what's happening with the Lakers or what's happening with Bahamas basketball? Because it doesn't seem like they really want him in LA, but I know we want him here. The next big test now is, of course, Puerto Rico. There's been some big wins on the road, but this one just felt particularly different because you knew what the other side was playing for. You know how important it was to them. This wasn't just a traditional power overlooking something. This was somebody still in the developing stages that really wanted it. And it's cliche for people to always say that, yeah, this person wanted it more or one side wanted it more. I'm pretty sure in terms of context, it's tough to argue that we wanted this more than Jamaica wanted it because we've been to points beyond this. Jamaica hasn't. We've been to points beyond this. Jamaica hasn't. So this would have been a first for them. So the first 4 rounds has 4 teams per group. It's us, Canada, Jamaica, Puerto Rico, all that comprising Group B. So out of that, the top 3 teams will advance to round 2. Basically, we just can't come last. Then you have 2 more groups of 6. In that second round, you have the top 3 teams in each one of those groups will qualify directly to the World Cup. In addition to that, 2 fourth-place teams will be in the final playoff spot for that 7th and final spot in the Americas. So the Americas region has 7 spots up for grabs. We're trying to get in one of those 7, which is why every single game matters, which is why there was no way we could have fallen to 0-3. Technically, we wouldn't have been out of it, but for all intents and purposes, we'd have been out of it, dog. Like, we would have been out of it. There wasn't gonna be coming back from 0-3. Realistically speaking, it wasn't going to happen. So now, every single one of these games is a playoff game. So tomorrow, when we play Puerto Rico, that has to feel like a playoff game. They coming in there with all of their Bad Bunny energy from the Super Bowl. Hopefully he doesn't perform and give them this jolt of nationalism and pride and have them playing out of their minds. Need to keep Benito away from this. Can't be inspired by music that great. But this matchup against Puerto Rico could be so important. Because to win this game and to move to 2-2, then you just look at the summer window. And you know who's coming for the summer window. Then everyone has their NBA guys available. Then it's a completely different ball game for us. And we have those 2 games at home. Another benefit of the schedule, having these two road games now, February, March, which means you got the 2 at home in July, right in time for Independence. So we're seeing these 2 teams again. We're seeing Jamaica and Puerto Rico July 3rd and 6th. I can't remember off the top of my head the order of which one we're facing first, but it's July 3rd and 6th. So we got the guys at home, and they could close it out. 2 huge games, but all of that rests on this team getting it done again. They got it done in Jamaica. We can't rest on that. This is such a quick turnaround because you go from that Thursday night, you have a travel day Friday. Pretty much you got one day to get ready today, and then you got to be back at it, ready to pretty much fight for the name on the front of the jersey and the name on the back tomorrow against Puerto Rico. I want to talk about the leadership because we always talk about how important it is for the players to buy in and to have the local players that can still be able to compete. Talk about having the local talent to still be able to lead. Think about where our program reached its highest height with Chris DeMarco at the helm. And then there were points where we had Lucas coach in certain windows, but this was another win for the Bahamas with Moses Johnson leading. And just as important as it is for us to have the local talent on the floor, you got to have the local talent being able to coach and lead too. And just from knowing how much work he also has to do behind the scenes along with John, just knowing how much they do behind the scenes to get this to actually happen, and for him to have to step in the forefront, in the limelight, because to lead a program like this with these kind of expectations, that is not an easy task. I mean, y'all know Bahamian people ain't easy. But I think they respond to this homegrown leadership. And not just that, I think they also respond to people who they know are actually invested into the program. The players change based on cycles and based on opportunity and availability. So does the staff. But to have him there and to have them be able to get this done, I think it speaks volumes for where we can go, because we talk all the time about how much talent is in the pipeline in terms of the players. There's a whole lot of talent in the pipeline in terms of the coaching staff too. One day this program is going to belong to one of them, and they're going to have an opportunity to shape it. You got Mikhail McLean on the bench at Kentucky. You got Tum Tum, who's already had an opportunity to coach at the national team level. You got guys like Nishad Maki coaching D1 basketball. So the coaching is a reason to get excited too. But I don't want us to get ahead of ourselves. We got some business to take care of first. And before we do, we got to look back and still savor this moment, because we'll worry about Puerto Rico tomorrow. I want us to still savor this moment. I want us to think about what it meant to beat Jamaica in Jamaica. We're going to hear from the two men of the hour, the superstar that had the superstar game, Franco Miller. And we're going to hear from Moses Johnson, because being able to lead this group, getting their buy-in, none of this happens without that. Let's hear from those guys in the post-game wrap.
Thoughts on tonight's game? Coach, why don't you go first?
No problem. Tough game, tough environment. We know this means a lot for Jamaica, having the World Cup here for the first time. So we know we were coming into an environment, a heavy environment, but I want to give my hats off to these guys. This guy next to me hit some big shots down the stretch. He led the team. He was the consummate leader tonight. Everybody that came off the bench in the fourth quarter contributed. And with 15 lead changes, the game could have gone either way. But the ball bounced our way. We made a few turnovers down the stretch that cost us a bit, but we were able to pull it off. And that's what counts. So just want to thank God for the win. And now we'll build on this success as we move on to play Puerto Rico later on this week.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Just to piggyback on what Coach said, I think it was a pretty tough game. We had to fight all game. 15 lead changes, the game could go either way. But basketball is like a game of runs. So, we just is trying to tell the guys stay in there and keep competing, and the game will take care of itself. Jamaica's a very good team. Kofi and Chase, they were creating a lot of problems for us in the first and second half. So we were just trying to limit them as much as we could. And, we came out with the win, so that was pretty big.
Awesome. Questions from the crowd, please? Raise your hand.
Hi, Coach. Kathia Davis. Question. You guys did a very good job at going from the 3-point line. Was there a strategy that you decided that we're going to attack from the 3-point line tonight?
It wasn't a direct strategy, but we focused a lot on shooting. We got a lot of shots up today at shoot around, and the guys were shooting it really well. So we expected them to come out and do pretty well tonight, but the shots fell when they should have, and so we're happy for that.
Hi guys, Darnell from London. This is for you, Coach. So the Bahamas were down each quarter besides the last one. Talk to me about your mentality and what you were telling the team from quarters 1 to 3.
Like Franco said, in the first half, it was tough for us. Everything, they took some tough shots, but they fell. Chase was incredible in the first half. Kofi was beating us up down low, and so we had to make some adjustments. And after those adjustments were made, we got a few turnovers, led to some runouts, some key executions, and we came out with a win.
So, Coach, question. Coming up to this game, there was a lot of media and hype around what happened with Jamaica and Puerto Rico. How did that influence your preparation coming into this game?
Well, it didn't influence us. We control the controllables, and we can't control what we can't control. So we take ownership of what we can control and let the rest take care of itself.
Just got a question for you, Franco. Top scorer. Congratulations. That's a big deal considering, again, you guys came, you were losing for most of the quarters and you came up strong. Talk to me about your mentality going into the next game, being the top scorer and taking that win from Jamaica.
I just continue being aggressive and trying to, stack days and, be consistent with the things that I do on a daily basis. I think, like Coach Moses said, controlling the controllables and not really, worrying about external factors. So that's pretty much my mindset going into the next game.
I want to go from international basketball. Oh, this is a segue. There's one. Yep. Let me run through the checklist in my head. Yep. There's one player that was on that roster that came up through the system and was an MVP in our biggest tournament. There's one Hugh Campbell MVP that was on that roster for the senior men's national team in Jamaica. That was Rashad Davis, the man who made the inbound pass to Franco on that big time three. Hugh Campbell MVP in 10th grade, I believe, at CC Sweeting. Went on to finish high school in the States. Played at UTSA, FIU before he ended up turning pro. He's one that came through the pipeline. He's one that won MVP at our most prestigious tournament. We're going to use that as a segue to talk about this year's tournament. Game On Bahamas, the all-new Everybody Wins Live Sportsbook, is where sports fans turn picks into play. From football to basketball and everything in between, we've got the odds that move with the game. It's fast, it's fun, it's built for players who know their stuff. So grab your picks, lock in your parlay, and feel the win with Everybody Wins Live Sportsbook. Some fans watch, real fans play. Everybody Wins Live Sportsbook turns every match, every shot, every score into your moment. The better you know the game, the better you play. Now with smarter features and a bigger experience, Everybody Wins Live Sportsbook, built for players who live the game. The secret is out. The all-new Everybody Wins Live Sportsbook is here, and it's what you've been waiting on. The action never stops. Live odds, live bets, live excitement. The biggest sportsbook is waiting on you. Your team, your moment, your win. Everybody Wins Live Sportsbook, built for players. You know the game. You live for the rivalries, the buzzer beaters, the Hail Marys. At Everybody Wins Live Sportsbook, we're built for that energy because we're built for players. Better odds, faster action, smarter bets. Visit everybodywinslive.com or drop into an EWL location and feel the difference. Everybody Wins Live Sportsbook, built for players. 42nd edition of the Hugh Campbell Basketball Invitational Tournament. Which one is it? Classic Invitational Tournament. I feel like we interchange those three all the time. Anyway, that's in the books. The C.I. Gibson Rattlers defeat the St. George's Jaguars in blowout fashion. I'll be honest, not the kind of championship game that you want. After a week, so many games, when it comes down to it, here's the thing about tournaments. This is sports and competition in general. We love Cinderella stories to a certain extent. We love Cinderella stories because they make for great motivating factors. They make for great attention seeking, great marketing. But we also love perennial powers because they have familiarity. And with familiarity comes legacy fan bases. And this is how these things grow. So, for instance, in the NCAA tournament, you love a year when you have a St. Mary's or where you have a Loyola Marymount come about and they just run through and they make a break for the title. But at the end of the day, you still want Duke, North Carolina. You still want Kentucky, Kansas. You still want the Blue Bloods there because those are the names that you're familiar with. So this tournament had a bit of that, and I enjoyed it because it had both of those elements. I've never seen BISS schools be this competitive in Hugh Campbell. From the times when I was a kid just watching, to the times when I was playing, to the times covering it as a journalist, to whatever it is you call it that I do now. I've never seen the balance of power shift this way. You would have the rare occurrence when, a school would have a really good run and they would have the bigs to be able to contend, but there wasn't teams making legitimate threats like this. And I honestly don't think we've ever seen it before. In the Final 8, the pool championships, we'll use the same NCAA terminology. In the Elite 8 pool championships, 3 BAISS schools. I don't know about the records for all 42 years of Hugh Campbell, but in this era, I have never seen that happen before. To see QC advance to the Final 4, never seen that happen before. Westminster was just running through competition. Even in their years when they were winning the BAISS, they had some runs. I don't think they had a run quite like this. I stand to be corrected. But Westminster had an amazing run, and if not for injuries towards the end there, then they would have been in the Final 4. So it was a great St. John's. St. John's made it deep into the pool championships. We haven't seen it that close. And it made me think, watching that just made me think, we are way too small for this to be the only time that we see that. It can't be for this 1 week. It's the one time we see that. I honestly think we should just be playing interleagues more or have one league. We are not big enough for this. Not if kids seriously want to be considered for playing basketball at the next level. That was the immediate standout for me. Like, we should definitely be seeing more of this. It's got to be for more than 1 week out of the year. I think it's doing a disservice to the players themselves. Because there was legit star power that a lot of us were introduced to during this tournament. Like, yes, the schools made runs, but in a small country like this, you got to be able to pick off and identify that talent. And I feel like watching these games, we always sort them into two different columns. Like, yeah, good high school players and then ones that could play at the next level. So for me, we saw a lot of players that this was kind of their coming out party to the wider public for you to familiarize yourself with them. And one of those guys for me was the point guard for Queens College, Tayshaun Taylor. In terms of having a feel for the game, like those intangibles that is difficult to teach, great change of pace, knows how to get his own shot, knows when to get others involved. That kid is elite. He could play, he could start, he could be a star for any team in the country. I think he's someone that plays at the next level where the next choice will be very interesting to see where he ends up, because that's the most important part, transitioning from here, getting into a program that allow those talents to shine. But in terms of the players that we've seen come from here and gone on, I think he has that kind of ability. Jaheim Armbruster from Westminster, absolute dog. Finished second in the tournament, averaging 16.8 a game. He was carrying that team. And for people that were unsure what to get from Westminster, if he didn't get hurt at the end of in that pool championship game, I think they move on. I think they move on. So him and Tayshaun Taylor pretty much neck and neck. Armbruster was second in the tournament in scoring, and he was pretty much a one-man wrecking crew for a lot of it. Yeah, their backcourt in general is strong, but Armbruster's a name to watch. Another one of my favorites in this tournament, Makai Nesbitt from St. George's. I think he was the best player on the team he was the best player all year in Grand Bahamas League. And I think I wanted to see more from him in that title game. More from St. George's in general, but I wanted him to put his stamp on that game because we've seen guys do it. And those are the moments to do it. I talked about Rashad Davis earlier when he won MVP with CC Sweeting, and he was a sixth man on that team. But when he came on the floor, he made a difference and he made an impact. And you want to see kids shine and have that moment in the spotlight and see them shine on the biggest stage in their career to this point. But Nesbitt was incredible all tournament. And then you got to go to the winners. Darius Hannah plays exactly like a coach's son would play. For someone like Mark Hannah, who's produced some of, he's the engine behind why C.I. Gibson has been so dominant over the course of this run, because they have a direct pipeline. They're the only ones that have the kind of feeder system like this where you have continuity. So a lot of these guys are introduced to the game, introduced to conditioning, to playing a certain way, to living up to the expectations of playing at a certain level at D.W. Davis with Mark Hannah. So when they step into C.I. Gibson and they go to Kevin Johnson, it's not a culture shock. They go in prepared for that. So obviously, Darius Hannah being Mark's son, he's going to have some attributes that would make his game very attractive to anybody watching. You could tell right away, and I remember seeing this from, he was a kid at D.W. Davis. He has natural leadership skills. Even playing with older players, you could tell the leadership skills are there. You can also tell that he learned very early, for you to make it in this game, you got to be able to shoot the ball, and you cannot be afraid to take and make big shots. Some of the greatest athletes this country has ever seen, whether it's basketball or not, had and still have a level of irrational confidence. And I like the fact that he has that. He showed it in the championship game. We're going to get to the championship game too. But if we're talking about the story of that title game, and pretty much the story of the tournament, has to be Mario Rule. So let's talk a little bit about him, even before we get to this tournament, to this year's tournament. So C.I. Gibson was in the title game 3 consecutive years. They win it in 2023. They win it in So C.I. Gibson was in the title game 3 consecutive years. They win it in 2023 over Sunline, when that was an upset. A lot of people expected them to lose that game. 2024, they end up losing to Tabernacle. And the way they lost to Tabernacle, back and forth game, and Tabby goes 5 wide. They bring in Claudius Burrows, and he was just taking and making some big shots. That irrational confidence that I talked about earlier. Well, Burrows came off the bench and he was just knocking down everything for Tabernacle, pretty much playing a version of a stretch 5. You know who wasn't getting out on him closing out? At the time, that was Mario Rule when he was a junior. So think about carrying that into this year and stepping into a leadership role for a team expected to return to this point, to a team expected to win. They get the GSSSA title. Rule comes in and he was dominant every single... Well, C.I. Gibson was dominant in general, but he was the driving force behind that. Led the tournament on the boards at 13.2 per game and was third in scoring at 16 points per game. So average a double-double. The tournament goes on, wears on, and then we learn the night of the championship that he lost his father just days before that game. So during the tournament, when they're going out there and they're playing every day, lost his father. And when you think about a teenager having to go through that and play through that, that's a tremendous amount of courage. That's a tremendous amount of courage. It's tough for grown men to do, so imagine a teenager doing that, right? This is up until this point, the biggest moments of his sports career. And he goes out on the same stage where he came up short the year before and had the game of his life to win MVP. Started the game 0 for 5. St. George's got out, and you wondered if the same thing was going to happen to C.I. Gibson again, if St. George's was just going to run away with it. So he starts the game 0 for 5. He finishes 12 for 20. So after missing those first 5 shots, he only missed 3 more times for the rest of the game. Went on an incredible tear. Finished with 24 points, 18 boards, was named the MVP. Hannah was big in that game as well because he was taking and making big threes. So C.I. Gibson wins number 7 in school history, second in the amount of Hugh Campbell's won with their 7. So Johnson is the most winningest coach at this point because he's won 7 Hugh Campbell's. Tabernacle is the leading school. They won 9, and that's split between Norris Bain and Kevin Clark. So Johnson's, in terms of coaching, he has 7. His program is second with 7. On the other side, you had to feel that for Darrell Sayers and for St. George's. They've won a national title, and we talk about on this program so much how nationals should still exist. And we always root for and are going to continue to bang the drum for that to come back because we should have a state-sponsored national tournament, but we're going to get to that later. So St. George's has that on the resume, but they don't have a Hugh Campbell title. And this looks like one of the best opportunities to get it. They had a dominant team all year in Grand Bahama, came into this year's Hugh Campbell and were upset by C.W. Saunders. And it was on a day when, once Wednesday comes at Hugh Campbell and the Grand Bahama teams are coming, you expect them to come in and just be dominant and strike fair into everybody. Did not happen this year. Tabernacle lost their first game. Sunland lost their first game. Tabernacle won their first game by only 2, I think. It was a singles possession game. St. George's lost their first game to C.W. Saunders, and it looked like it was going to be an all-Nassau final. But after that loss, the Jaguars were able to right the ship. Darrell Sayers and crew got things rolling, and they were able to get it all the way to the title game until they ran into that buzzsaw called the C.I. Gibson Rattlers. So, to place that into context, they have never won a Hugh Campbell title. And so that one is still outstanding. But it sparked a conversation here in the 10YS studios because we were comparing and contrasting, right? So you got to consider C.I. Gibson basketball a dynasty. For this era, everybody knows the brand of basketball that they produce, and nobody has been able to really stop it. Yes, you can for a spot year here and there, but they are always going to be in that conversation. They have a heritage system there, what we talked about with the feeder system from D.W. Davis there. Continuity in the coaching. So they're not hearing one thing in junior school and then hearing something else when they get to senior school. They hear one message for 6 years. That's important. That's key. But even though Sayers and the Jaguars don't have the Hugh Campbell title on the resume, I measure him by something different. I measure him by the products that he's been able to produce and get them to play at the next level. I measure him by how well he's in tune with that side of the game. You have a conversation with him and it's very rarely going to be about how much you win there. It's going to be about how do we change the educational system to ensure that when these guys are able to go off to school, they can walk into a program and be academically eligible. Look at the players that have come out of his system. We can literally go all the way to NBA talent. The players that have gone on to have incredible high school careers in the U.S. and have eventually ended up playing D1 and play on national teams. Guys like Kentwan Smith, guys like Travis Munnings, Magnum Roll, all have passed through this program. Paul Green, all Division I players. To have a local coach said one of my guys came through my program and was drafted. This was a guy, and the rarest case, and I always say Magnum Roll is one of one given his circumstances. to get that deep into the high school program here and to go to prep school in Laurinburg for 1 year and to become such a sought after recruit. Obviously, the things that were done here in the Bahamas prepared him for that. So what is more important to the resume of a high school coach? Is it having the trophy case to say I've won the most in terms of the local tournaments? Or is it more important to say my resume of players that have left here have gone on to do amazing things? I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to this. I think it's all completely subjective, and I think both are necessary. I'm not trying to disparage any one of these, because it's important to have an impact. Everyone is not going to go off a ball. Everyone is not going to have a life built around basketball. But it's important to be able to reach particularly kids in underprivileged communities, underserved communities, and to give them structure, even as for that brief period of time, for that brief 3-4 years, to give them structure, to give them something to look forward to. Because for some of these guys, that last time bouncing a ball in high school is probably going to be some of the best moments of their life. So that is important. So I'm not going to say chasing the championships and chasing the titles here don't matter, but there has to also be a balance. The other side matters too. Because I do think as a coach and as a mentor, having their best interests at heart and looking at the ones that have the potential to do more than just play here, that's extremely important. That's extremely important because you also have to teach them to simultaneously be thinking of a life outside of this. Because after you put on that t-shirt to say we won and you get that trophy, and you may have a celebratory assembly at school, you might even have a motorcade, but then what's next? So we need both. It's up to the listeners. I'm sure y'all can have this conversation and weigh in. We have it every year and we're going to continue to do so. I think both of these things can coexist and they should coexist simultaneously. You should be concerned about winning because that instills character, that instills certain principles that are important, but you should also be concerned about the life after this. Each legacy is different, each both equally important. Okay, that's all the good stuff, but we do have to get to some other things as well, because we started at the top of this segment saying this is year 42. Do we think this tournament has evolved? I would say no. I would say it's pretty much been the same the entire time it's been in existence. Stayed in the same venues, maintained the same traditional format, not fully adapted to the kind of modern athlete exposure models. Still kind of exists in a vacuum. People still only see one game and that's the last game. So if you don't make it to that last game, you're not seen. A lot of people missed an opportunity to see guys like Tayshaun Taylor and Jaheim Armbrister. They only saw the guys that played in the title game, and that's just not the way these things work anymore. It's just not how it happens. Modern high school basketball is big business. It's not a business at all here. Little to no live streaming exposure. They have statistics for this. I would say that's the one advancement there's made. There's statistics for it that you can find digitally. Kudos for that. The social media branding, minimal. It has cultural prestige, but it lacks commercial growth. It lacks broadcast reach. It lacks international scouting visibility. And those things matter. So we continue to produce this athletic talent, this basketball talent. But what are we doing with it? Because I don't think a tournament, for a sport as important as basketball is to Bahamian culture, a tournament of this magnitude shouldn't just be about who wins on the scoreboard, but trying to ensure that everyone, as much as possible, wins in life, isn't it? And I think the real challenge for Bahamian basketball isn't preserving tradition. It's making sure that tradition isn't limiting future opportunity. Game on, Bahamas. The all-new Everybody Wins Live Sportsbook is where sports fans turn picks into play. From football to basketball and everything in between, we've got the odds that move with the game. It's fast, it's fun, it's built for players who know their stuff. So grab your picks, lock in your parlay, and feel the win with Everybody Wins Live Sportsbook. Some fans watch. Real fans play. Everybody Wins Live Sportsbook turns every match, every shot, every score into your moment. The better you know the game, the better you play. Now with smarter features and a bigger experience, Everybody Wins Live Sportsbook, built for players who live the game. The secret is out. The all-new Everybody Wins Live Sportsbook is here, and it's what you've been waiting on. The action never stops. Live odds, live bets, live excitement. The biggest sportsbook is waiting on you. Your team, your moment, your win. Everybody Wins Live Sportsbook, built for players. You know the game. You live for the rivalries, the buzzer beaters, the Hail Marys. At Everybody Wins Live Sportsbook, we're built for that energy because we're built for players. Better odds, faster action, smarter bets. Visit everybodywinslive.com or drop into an EWL location and feel the difference. Everybody Wins Live Sportsbook, built for players. So let's take it from local basketball to basketball on the international stage. Well, on the big NCAA stage. Well, I guess this one still has local ties, right? So as a sports nerd, I spent a lot of my time on YouTube, and I went down the Hugh Campbell rabbit hole, and I found this page, Freeport Classics. And I go to this page a lot when I just want to watch old Hugh Campbell videos because, like I said, I don't think the tournament is what it used to be. So I go back and I look at these championship games from the 90s, from the early 2000s. And I was watching the 2006 game. This was C.I. Gibson against Jack Hayward. And I remember this tournament distinctly because this was a time period when I was home on a break from school and I caught a couple of games, and you saw this, obviously one of the younger kids in the Jack Hayward program, but what a lot of schools would do is you would bring one of the younger kids along. They may not get a whole lot of playing time, perhaps early in the tournament, but you give them some run. You have them playing with the seniors. And this one kid, you could tell he moved with a lot of confidence and a lot of swagger, could really shoot the ball well. And you just wonder what the future was going to be like. Was he going to be one of the ones that would go off to school and kind of make a name for himself? The answer to that is yes. This is a long roundabout way of saying you could tell there was something about this kid. This wasn't his time yet. But when Buddy Hield hit the growth spurt and he was no longer the player on the bench who was just the shooter, and he was no longer just the young guy to come along with the seniors for experience, he became the guy. And I remember it because at the time, and this is not revisionist history, at the time, I always wondered, why is it that every time they come running out of the locker room or they're walking into the gym, they got this short kid with a whole lot of confidence who's leading this team? Not one of the starters. Obviously, he's one of the juniors that you would take in these tournaments just for some experience. So you know how the story goes. After Jack Hayward, he heads to Wichita, heads to Sunrise, becomes a legend at that school, and then goes to Oklahoma. And that's where we pick up this story. So Buddy has his number 24 jersey retired in Norman, Oklahoma with the Sooners program, turned them into a Big 12 powerhouse. And it cannot be understated how dynamic Buddy Hield's career is. I never want Bahamians to take it for granted because he legitimately became the best player and the story of college basketball when you look at that 2015-2016 season. His legacy there now is forever. It's in the rafters of the Lloyd Noble Center. He turned Big 12 into a powerhouse. He turned the Sooners into a Big 12 powerhouse. They became national title contenders, which is no small feat. For his career, 2,229 points. That's second all-time in Oklahoma history. Set the program record for three-pointers, 349. That 2016 season, insane. Won just about every award there was. And if you don't remember, this was the Ben Simmons year. And, I mean, it was a foreshadowing of things to come. But this was the Ben Simmons year. And everyone headed into that season thought he was going to be the story of college basketball. And Buddy Hield took it away. 2016 National Player of the Year. He swept just about every major award. The Naismith Trophy, Wooden Award, Oscar Robertson Trophy for the nation's best shooting guard, Consensus First Team All-American, Big 12 Player of the Year. The resume and the accolades that surrounded Buddy over the course of that entire tenure at Oklahoma, but particularly in his senior season, it's one of the greatest of all time. And it just had me thinking, we really do need to continuously recognize these people because the rest of the world takes notice. They treat Buddy Hield like that's 8 Mile Rock. That's how people in Norman, Oklahoma treat it. So I want to take it back to the beginning of his tenure at Oklahoma. Freshman year comes in. I wouldn't say highly heralded freshman, but also not understated. So somebody who you saw as a project who would come along later and continue to rise up the ranks. So as what happens with high schoolers, you remember them from the time that they were playing and you might lose touch. And that's kind of where I was with it. So I remember the first game of the season. And at this point, I was done with school, writing full time. And I remember just checking college basketball scores like I always do. And I remember seeing his name. And at this point, Buddy was a freshman. He was an energy guy coming off the bench. He was wearing number 3. And I saw it and I was like, that's the kid from Jack Hayward. That energy guy off the bench in his freshman season materialized into an Oklahoma legend. And to see him honored and to see his family be there to enjoy that and for everyone to really recognize there really is a place outside of the Bahamas where he's seen as that guy. And all of this happening in under the context of what's going on with his career now in the NBA, how he was treated like trash in Golden State and how he's being treated the same way in Atlanta, made it all the more gratifying because even if those teams, those franchises don't know, don't remember, or don't appreciate, there are people out there that always will. And the thing about it is you saw his ascent. You saw things change. You saw his game change as well with the number. Because he went from being someone that was fitting in to someone that was standing out. Someone that was a part of the offense to being the offense. He could have left after his junior season, and I thought he should have. As a junior, second team all Big 12, average about 15, 16 per game. Most mock drafts had him as a mid-first to late first round selection. He should have left. And my first thought was, buddy, get out of here and go get your money. But he bet on himself, as he would do several times in his career and was proved to be right in his career a whole lot of times. He bet on himself. He came back. He came back for a senior season, and to everyone else, it seemed like a gamble, but apparently he was just one step ahead of the rest of us. He knew what he was doing, and none of us did. So that senior season, the legendary year, he averaged 25 points per game, 5.7 rebounds, shot 45% from 3, 88% from the free throw line, and made a then school record 147 threes that season. Led the nation in total points. It's just one of the greatest seasons ever. And I always tell people that you've got to speak about it like that. This wasn't just a good year. This wasn't just a good year for a Bahamian. It was literally one of the greatest college basketball seasons we've ever seen. And we don't speak about it in that context enough. So to me, it wasn't just the fact that the year was great. College basketball is about moments. And if you watch the tournament, there's always the one shining moment montage at the end of it. But that's really what it's about. And I want to recap some of my favorite moments from that season. And a lot of this is probably the reason why that number 24 is up in the rafters today. So fifth, you could pick any game from the Big 12 tournament because he carried Oklahoma through that, had multiple 30-point games, carried them to the title games. And at this year, the Big 12, well, like in many years, it was one of the best conferences in college basketball at the time. We're going to get to how good they were later in the countdown because, boy, did he have some battles with Kansas. Number 4 on this list, second round of the NCAA tournament, went off against VCU, had 29. And at this point, you got to remember, VCU was known for kind of this, what they call this havoc defense. And they pressured guards relentlessly at the point of attack. But Buddy was controlling the pace of that game and was not shaken at all. I mean, he'd been through a lot that season to that point. VCU in no way, shape, or form was the best team or the best defense that he played over the course of the year. But to have that moment on the NCAA stage was a big deal. He would have better moments. Let's go on to number 3. This was the first game they played against Kansas in the year. Had 37 against Kansas. And if you know anything about college basketball, Kansas perennial Big 12 powerhouse. Oklahoma was seen as the upstart. But Buddy was cooking them every single time they played. Every single time. 37 against Kansas. Big win there. Number 2. This is the one that a lot of people refer to as the Kobe game. Because this was the one where Kobe Bryant was in the building. Buddy got to take that picture with him. Kobe said all the great things about his game. This was the Elite 8 against Oregon, the game that propelled the Sooners to the Final Four. Buddy went off at 36, had 8 3-pointers. Oregon had a team of NBA-level athletes. Didn't matter. Didn't matter. He was getting in a variety of ways, 3 levels, moving without the ball, off the dribble. This was the game I feel that really clinched his legacy. And it wasn't just the Kobe cosign. It was when he did it on the biggest stage. But that still wasn't the best. Number 1 for me, and it happened. This is number 1 partially because it came against Kansas, and I love to make fun of Kansas anytime something happens. Oklahoma actually lost this game, but it didn't matter. Buddy went off for 46 points, career high, hit 7 threes, grabbed 8 boards. And at this point, Kansas, number 1 ranked team in the nation. It didn't matter. It didn't matter because the number 1 ranked team in the nation could not stop the number 1 player in the nation. But I think the totality of his career, it was so much more than just this one year, but obviously that year was a big part of the reason that he was drafted where he was drafted and why he had the career that he's had. But the totality of his career meant so much, and you could tell it meant so much to the Oklahoma program because they saw him grow from those days when he was just the 6th, 7th guy off the bench. They saw him go from just a shooter, just an energy guy, just a good scorer to becoming an offensive weapon. And we know he has this infectious personality. You see it still, well, if Atlanta would actually give it a chance, you'd see it today. You saw it in Golden State, where as much as the fans would say negative things, when he got traded, yeah, people were pretty visibly and obviously upset about the fact that you have a locker room and a presence that you are going to miss. That's the kind of personality he has, the kind of personality that helps build a program. You become a cultural cornerstone, which is what he was for Oklahoma. You watched him become an elite perimeter scorer. You watched him become the star in college basketball. And for any fan base, when you get to see your team spoken about like one of the top programs or one of the top teams across the board internationally, that's a great feeling, man. And he did that for this program. He didn't just it's almost as if he didn't just play for the Sooners. He helped to redefine what the program could be. They were no longer afterthoughts and a step behind Kansas, a step behind other programs in the Big 12. They were the lead dogs. He gave them wins, national exposure, postseason performance. And the jersey retirement is pretty much immortal recognition. Buddy's career always kind of parallels with what we did here with 10YS. And this run at the Final Four, it meant so much to us because it was one of the first moments where we thought, we can't rely on other people to understand how important it is because they're just not going to get it, or I don't want to be harsh enough to say not care, but just won't understand the impact that it could have or what it should have. And so I remember at the time I was writing for the Tribune, tried to pitch the idea. They didn't really get it. And me and John were like, no, we just got to go to the Final Four. This is ridiculous. Like, I think I want to say I'm pretty sure ZNS was there. But we recognized that we had to cover it in a different way and cover it our way. And I remember that trip. I just called my editors from the airport and said, I'm going to Houston. I'll send you all whatever I have from there. But in my mind, we're already doing our own thing with this. And this is going to be what the future is. And that is a relic of a bygone era. I'm leaving anything behind that they were thinking about and moving on to my own thing. And that was the right choice. That was the right choice because if a Bahamian is in the Final Four, we should be there covering that. But not just that. You could kind of tell years before that this was where it was trending towards this because seasons before, Oklahoma had made a run towards the Elite Eight. And I remember it was Buddy and Oklahoma, Tum Tum and Michigan State ended up playing in the same region, didn't get to play against each other because Oklahoma lost. But that was the first time that I made a trip to say, yeah, we have got to be there for a milestone moment in this career. And there were so many milestone moments. We got to start retiring jerseys, by the way. Do schools here do that? Because there's no way that Sunrise and Oklahoma should have beat Jack Hayward to retiring Buddy's jersey, right? Like, there should be, while we're on the topic of jersey retirements, and I know the segment before we were talking about Hugh Campbell, but there should be an entire C.I. Gibson and Tabernacle Hugh Campbell Hall of Fame in terms of jerseys. Or is retiring jerseys just really not a Bahamian thing? Anyway, we're on it talking about Buddy's Oklahoma career and what he became. And so his stature as an inspiration, his stature as a player, I think changed the trajectory of Bahamian basketball. Because when we saw what he became at the collegiate level and then going on to become a lottery pick and everything that he's done over the course of his NBA career, none of it seems unattainable anymore. Especially when you hear his story and you know where he came from and you know that he was sitting on the same Hugh Campbell bench as so many kids that came before him. He just was given the opportunity and made the most of it. And I always realize that when I hear him talk to kids in his Buddy Buckets program, and that's the one thing he tries to instill in them, and he hammers that point home. It's not just about getting the opportunity, because he would say he wasn't the best player. At 14, being on national teams or sitting on his high school bench, he'd tell you he wasn't the best player. But when the opportunity came along, he was absolutely ready for it, and he thrived. At every level. It happened in high school, getting the opportunity, thriving, learning, adding to his game. Obviously, it happened at Oklahoma, getting better every year, betting on himself as a junior, and then having the senior season of a lifetime.
It's been great. Just looking back, how 10 years went by so fast, and like see Spang, and I can tell you one thing: all the coaches and everybody, they look younger. So that's a plus, and just to see him energy, see him charisma, see him smile, see him vibe. A lot of fun times we share here, man. My 4 years here, we never traded for anything in the world. I said earlier when I was here. These years made me who I am. This place made me who I am as a person, and as a player, you all know what I did. But I think I grew a lot as a person, and from the leadership from Coach Kruger and Coach Crutch, being that father figure for me each and every day, talking to him every day. How can I be better? Coach Henson, R.I.P. to Coach Lou Hill, Shep, everybody, Scott Thompson, everybody down the line. And Yo-Yo when his time was here, Bryce Dobb, everybody who helped me on this path, has a special place in my heart, and this place will always be something I cherish for a long time.
Buddy, all you guys stayed together and played together. You guys became a really good team.
All right.
Talk about that, because that's not going to happen today in today's game with the portal.
Yeah, it's a little different. When you get money involved, things change, but that's how the game changed. The change happens, and it's sad that you can't see it no more. But this game has always been a business, and I'm not mad they treat us as a business, because the players really do a lot. But it's just sad that you can't hold that brotherhood like at the 4-year player, but being in the same program for a long time, because people, players, families, coaches, everybody gets moody and they want to try something new. They always want that shiny best thing, so it's hard, so that's what comes with the business part of this thing. But it's also fun, and I think it's more pressure on the coaches to coach, and it's also not as much pressure on the players, because they're in it for the money, but they still got to perform, because they don't perform, either they go up a level or they go down a level.
Buddy, what was your reaction when you were first told that OU was going to retire your jersey?
I was smiling. I would say, for real. Also, I was about damn time. But no, man. Josie I can tell he's been lingering along to talk to me about this, and I think Trey Young, I think, helped push it too. I could be wrong, but I think he was trying to get involved with all this, and trying to we to get Buddy's stuff done, and it was a big smile, man. I'm always smiling, but I didn't get emotional as yet. I was in the Bahamas the other day, and Trey Slate, he's my trainer. He was talking about how, man, your jersey getting retired, man. You know how big that is, huh, man? Let's enjoy this All-Star break, man. You're talking too much, and so as I come here every day, and I come here today, I understand how surreal it is, and I'm just very appreciative for that, man.
Does being back in this building return a certain nostalgia and specific memories from your time here?
I kind of miss the preparation each and every day, getting ready for games. The NBA is kind of different. It's always back-to-back, and a lot of uncertainty, but here what you're getting. And I just miss the preparation. I miss the guys. I miss the crowd. I just miss the energy, man. It was just a vibe here, and this vibe can never be created or we did. So I thank you for the relationships by share with everybody, and the space will always have a special place in my heart.
How important has it been for you to return to the program in the last couple of years in the off season, or get to know some of the current players and coaches? How important is that?
It's been really good, and as a foreign player, you always want to come back and just play with the guys and get to know the guys, and Blake did it for us when we were here. Hollis Price did it for us when we were here. So especially when you play here and you leave a mark here, you want to come back and play with the guys, and that's I'm just paying my dues as the legends did before. They come back and they show love and competed with us, and the players look forward for that, and you just get after it with them, and it's always good to see old faces and just see how check on how they're doing. A couple of guys who I was always here and we practicing was Paul, Jerry, and Joe. I think Jerry passed away, R.I.P. to him. But I talked to Paul today, and Paul is 91, and he said, "Man, I can't wait to see you." And I said, "Man, Paul, you're still going, So it's crazy that they were just 70, 80-year-olds in the gym, and they were full of energy, and they're still going, and us players we take it for granted. We see those guys every day, and as they get older, it was kind of happy I got to reach out to him because, Paul always had a smile on his face, and I just hope I got to see him again because I know he's getting up there.
I'm sorry. We got to get back to the practice gym for a minute. So, sorry. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah. Mike cut you off. Blame Mike.
So the whole Buddy Hield story, the story is still being written. I think it ends with him getting the Bahamas to the Olympics, but we'll cross that bridge, hang that jersey, and record that milestone when we get to it. Game On Bahamas, the all-new Everybody Wins Live Sportsbook, is where sports fans turn picks into play. From football to basketball and everything in between, we've got the odds that move with the game. It's fast, it's fun, it's built for players who know their stuff. So grab your picks, lock in your parlay, and feel the win with Everybody Wins Live Sportsbook. Some fans watch, real fans play. Everybody Wins Live Sportsbook turns every match, every shot, every score into your moment. The better you know the game, the better you play. Now with smarter features and a bigger experience, Everybody Wins Live Sportsbook, built for players who live the game. The secret is out. The all-new Everybody Wins Live Sportsbook is here, and it's what you've been waiting on. The action never stops. Live odds, live bets, live excitement. The biggest sportsbook is waiting on you. Your team, your moment, your win. Everybody Wins Live Sportsbook, built for players. You know the game. You live for the rivalries, the buzzer beaters, the Hail Marys. At Everybody Wins Live Sportsbook, we're built for that energy because we're built for players. Better odds, faster action, smarter bets. Visit everybodywinslive.com or drop into an EWL location and feel the difference. Everybody Wins Live Sportsbook, built for players. The last local topic we got to get to, and I really thought this was going to be done, but it seemed like this story goes from bad thing to worse. We got to talk about the Ayton thing, y'all. And this has been a topic of conversation so many times here on The Accredited. I'm sure in every one of your chat groups, in every barbershop, wherever y'all, on the court, at the gym, anywhere, people talk about basketball because the Lakers are such this force of nature. Because we are limited in how many NBA players we have, and because the fact that he was in the media for this ridiculous arrest that wasn't an arrest, but this story that blew all the way out of proportion, it just seems as like things went from bad to worse in the course of just 2 weeks. And so you have that. You have all the negative press, all the pretty much unwarranted negative press around there that nobody really apologized for. Nobody tried to clarify or any of that. But you have that. There was already ill will surrounding DeAndre Ayton because the spotlight in LA is so much more brighter than anywhere else. And it's difficult to understand if you haven't gone through it. So nothing good happened on All-Star break. It was just negative press and negative attention that had nothing to do with basketball. And so in my mind, you know what? You get back to the business of basketball, be done with all of this, and just go back to hooping and doing what you do. So first game out of the break, all right game, 13-7. Lakers win over the Clippers. But then they go on a 3-game losing streak. And he does not have a good game against Boston, is in foul trouble. There's already a whole lot of questions about JJ Redick in this rotation, but that foul trouble leads to him just finishing with 4-7. So an okay game, a subpar game. The next game is the Orlando game. And for several reasons, this is the one where the proverbial you-know-what hit the fan. DA actually played really well in this game, had 21 and 13. But the Lakers lost at home to Orlando, a game that they definitely should have won. Orlando doesn't even have their second, or I guess where you put Desmond Bane, their second or third best player. And they lose that game to the Magic. And it was the way they lost that game, surrendering a lead in the fourth. And not for nothing, but if Austin Reeves blocks out Anthony Black on that last possession where Ayton was defending Paolo Banchero, we probably don't have this discussion. We probably don't. but he didn't. Black got in there. Wendell Carter was able to hit the game winner. Everything that happened with Luka on the final possession, not taking that shot, all of that gets swept under the rug because the day after that game, the Dave McMenamin story drops. And Dave McMenamin got to be considered a villain for us now, and not just because he bagged Malika Andrews, which is a villainous act in itself. Not just because he bagged Malika Andrews. I have my issues with him because of that. But anyway, he drops this, I don't know what you want to call it now. I don't know if this was... Basically, it was the whole story about DeAndre Ayton being valuable and important to the Lakers' success and vice versa. The Lakers' success being important to this point in Ayton's career. And it gave the context of what they signed him for, what he should be, what a lot of people's hope for him being a Laker is. And basically the tone of the story was he's not living up to that. And it gave some insight into what he was thinking. And we know what Laker people thought about him. And it just exploded. The powder keg exploded once this story dropped. And any semblance of goodwill outside of the 10YS studios, this may be the last place that DeAndre Ayton has goodwill. Because I don't know if it exists anywhere else. I really don't. He has become a lightning rod of negative attention. And you know what? I'm not joining in. I'm not joining in because I think it's become so easy to hate on him that the mob mentality at this point has taken over. And I honestly don't think context matters anymore. I also don't feel like we have to be objective about this at all. And that's the thing that always gets me, right? When people, especially with Bahamian athletes on the international stage, and people always try to feign objectivity as if you get some prize for that. No, because these people do not care about us or our athletes. They do not. So even if sometimes we got to fight on that lie, we will fight on that lie. And I am not joining in on the chorus of boos raining down on DeAndre Ayton. I'll say this. The only thing that I think he was wrong about was name dropping Clint Capella in that, because then you bring another person that had nothing to do with this into whatever back and forth you have with your organization and with the way things are going. That's the only thing I think he shouldn't have done, because the way he delivered that or the way it was expressed, you were using his name in a pejorative manner. And I don't think that part was cool. But I also know how frustrated he is at this whole thing. And by this whole thing, I mean everything happening in LA since he came there. Playing time fluctuating. His defensive engagement always in questioning. The fit next to ball dominant stars. And to be real, the Lakers lineup hasn't even been consistent. You had Braun missing the first part of the year. Austin Reeves was out for a while. So since Reeves came back, this team is still trying to figure out how to play together. It's still happening. It's a work in progress. But you don't get to have works in progress in LA. You don't get to have a work in progress when you have LeBron and Luka Doncic. That's just not the way it is. It's expected to be instant gratification. Even if you do nothing to get shooters. You bring in Marcus Smart. They get Luke Kennard at the deadline. Step in the right direction. Should have had shooters from the beginning of the season. You should have had more than just Luke Kennard. JJ Redick is constantly preaching about accountability. Yeah, someone needs to hold him accountable too. But the Magic game didn't create the issue. The issue existed there for a lot of the year, and that's why we've talked about it so much in this space. It definitely exposed the issue though, because now the body language is noticeable. Now you see all the effort, possessions clipped on social media because DeAndre Ayton hate watching has now become a thing. It's public now. It's layered now. And once he did the Clint Capella thing, it's difficult to walk back. And I don't know if there is a way to walk it back other than through performance. That's the only way. So we know what Capella's value is. Rim running, screen setting, rebounding, defensive anchor. I don't think we've ever heard him say a thing about touches. And when Ayton said the line, they want to turn him into Clint Capella, and he's not Clint Capella. He's not wrong. They do not have the same game. He's more talented offensively than Capella, but that's the problem. By you invoking Capella, you kind of give voice to the fact that you understand what they're asking. So if you understand what they're asking and you're not providing it, then you give people on the outside leeway to say that you just feel like you're bigger than the program and you don't want to be a part of it. Which is a bigger issue than not having the ability to fit in. It seems more now like refusal to fit in than actual ability. And that's what people are really going to have a problem with. DA has always seen himself as more than a vertical spacer, and I think he is. Fair or not, this is what the NBA ecosystem is. And to go from social media to the legacy media, everyone is going to parrot the same talking points. And a big part of why this is such a story is, other than the fact that it's the Lakers and anything in LeBron's universe becomes a big story, is this was supposed to be redemption. This was supposed to be a year when, and DA gave voice to this himself, this was supposed to be a year when the narrative changed. This was supposed to be people getting to see him in a different light because now he was playing for a contender. Now he was a part of a team and a part of a franchise that valued winning. Where I thought he would embrace having less pressure and having roles simplified. But now you got to wonder if it's salvageable. Does the coaching staff still trust him in late games? Because if anybody thinks Jackson Hayes is the answer, if you listen to this program regularly, you know I don't think Jackson Hayes is the answer for anything other than... Anyway, go look up some off-the-court stuff about him and his girlfriend, and you'll learn everything you need to know about Jackson Hayes. Does Ayton accept the simplified identity? I'm not talking verbally, because I don't know if he has the best relationship with the LA media. I know in what we know and have discussed off the record, I don't think it's the best relationship with the media. I don't think this is going to help. I don't know if the front office believes he's movable. And the thing about it is that he took $10 million less for this to happen, not to be mired in mediocrity in Portland. He does have the player option for next year. And I think the way this season ends is going to dictate so much about what happens next year. So who knows what happens now? The next game after the McManaman article drops, and it gets even worse because then you have the Phoenix game where everybody got to dunk on him now, and the groundswell of opinion. Listen, outside of the money and outside of playing basketball for a living and being very wealthy, you don't want to be DeAndre Ayton right now, because all of social media, all of the legacy media, every podcast, every single person that has a basketball platform is taking this opportunity to just drag his name through the mud. All of them. So after the McManaman article, then he has 2 points, 4 rebounds, plays just 23 minutes, and the Lakers lose again to Phoenix. Phoenix, who doesn't have Dylan Brooks and doesn't have Devin Booker. Boston, so to lose to Boston, I mean, that's bad enough, but they got blown out by Boston at home. And then to lose to the Magic at home, and to lose on the road to Phoenix without their 2 best players. And the backdrop for all of that is everything that's going on with DA. It seems like the entire plan for this is falling apart right before our eyes. But this isn't a question about talent. And I think that's where the disconnect is in this, and where the frustration from a lot of people comes from. It's a question about role alignment. I think from the point that he was in Phoenix and the years in Portland, well, we know Portland was just a pit stop to the next thing. And honestly, that's what this Laker thing turned out, that it's kind of looking like that, but I could see it headed that way. But his career arc has always hovered between franchise big and elite complementary piece. Where does he want to be? Where does he want to fit in? The Lakers need the second version, but DA still believes he's the first. And until the identities align, the tension will always live in the room. Winning does cure and fix all of this, by the way. It continues to be a hot topic in the NBA because you have to constantly feed the content machine, and there was nothing else going on bigger than this. And so the one thing about the NBA is when you don't have the games to focus on, the gossip will take hold because people need to feed it. You need to have segments to talk about on your platforms. Shows are on all day. Everyone's got a podcast. And so once something gets aggregated and it's in the news cycle, they take it and run with it. So this was just fodder for people to go on with. And in the NBA, it's not about what you can do. It's about what your team needs you to do. And right now, DA and the Lakers are speaking 2 different basketball languages. That's as simple as it is. I don't think there's a wrong person in this. But I also don't think people are willing to provide context to any parts of this situation. I don't think people are even trying to understand him. And I never think that they did. The worst part about this to me always has been the fact that we don't even feel like the people here are arguing on his side. I just never feel that, as someone that has a platform to say these things, I never feel the need to join in on the chorus of boos that comes from the American media. And I never will. I never will, because knowing these people personally and trying to understand, I don't think a person is what they are in their worst moment. I think we have to look at, and that's kind of what journalism is supposed to be. And I know I always say that I'm not a journalist, more of an entertainer at this point, but I think when you have the responsibility of these platforms, shouldn't you try to find that balance and try to get to who a person really is? Because I think if people really did the work, or if it was even readily available to them to understand who he really is, then they wouldn't look at it this way. The DA we talked to when we went to Philly, and we talked to him after the Laker game, and he was speaking so complimentary of VJ and talking about how things were going in this year in LA and where it could go, and talking about his relationship with the media and trying to adjust to everything you do being under this microscope. I think if more people knew that person, then not saying they got to be sympathetic, not saying they have to argue on his side, not saying they have to be as extreme as I am, because like I said, if we got to fight on that lie, then we'll just fight on that lie. I'm saying if you try to humanize these people and understand where they come from, then you won't just look at them as commodities, and you won't just look at them as someone that just has to get this job done for your feel good. Because at the end of the day, that is all this is for. And I will tell any athlete this, no matter if they are just playing primary school, high school, college all the way to the pros. You got to remember, these people out there that have all these opinions about you that take you to a negative space, they actually do not care about you. They care about what you can do and how what you do makes them feel. And at the point when you cannot do that anymore or provide that feel good for them, you will get exactly what DA is getting right now. So in all of the good moments, you got to remember that. You got to remember that. Right now, it's just fun to pick on him, apparently, for people without understanding context, without getting where he's coming from. I'll give him wrong for the Clint Capella thing, but not about the point that he's trying to get across. Because he's not wrong. They're speaking two different basketball languages. And there is a lot going on with this franchise. There's a lot going on with the LeBron dynamic. There's a lot going on with the Luka dynamic. There's a lot going on with roster construction. There's a lot going on with the change in ownership and changes in philosophy. But who is going to be the scapegoat? The same person that's been the scapegoat at the last two stops. And our platform is not going to be the one that's going to join in on that. Because I believe he's going to turn things around. And if John was here, John would be saying it too. And even if he doesn't turn it around in LA, you know how we feel here. We do not care about the NBA laundry. Whatever team they go to, we root for that. We root for the name on the back, the ones with the Bahamian passport, not the name on the front. Could care less about that. We care about it when they play for Team Bahamas. But whether it's the Lakers, whether it's the Bucks, whether it's Suns, Blazers, whoever, we're going to be rooting for the name on the back. This could all be a moot point, by the way. Lakers could go on a run. DA could turn things around. The Lakers could turn things around. They could still go on to win a championship. They do still have Luka and LeBron. So all of this segment, all of me standing on the soapbox, hopefully we don't have to do this again. Hopefully Dave McMenamin has a better story next time. Or you know what? I should go back to writing and actually write this from the next perspective. That's what we're going to do. I'm going to go back in my bag. But before I do that, we're going to head to the Bud Light Easy Takes of the Week.
Stafford going to the end zone, reaching up and making the grab.
Bahamas, are you ready for the ultimate Bud Light football experience? Buy 2 6-packs of Bud Light at any Jimmy's Wines and Spirits location or at participating liquor stores, and you're automatically entered to win. You could score an all-expense-paid trip to watch the Dolphins game live. Don't wait. Grab your Bud Light and get in the game today. Bud Light is distributed by Jimmy's Wines and Spirits, who reminds you to drink in moderation.
Bud Light Easy Takes of the Week. If you are new to the proceedings, here's what we do with this segment. Bud Light is easy to drink, easy to enjoy. And after so much time arguing with yourself or with the radio or however you choose to listen, arguing with me or arguing with yourself, we need to come to a consensus. And we here at 10YS believe you either come to that consensus by nodding your head and saying, yeah, you're nodding your head along with these takes and you believe in them, or the consensus is that these are just completely off the wall, completely baseless and nonsensical ramblings, so you choose not to buy into it. But whatever reason, they are either easy to argue for or argue against. That is the premise of the Bud Light Easy Takes of the Week. And every time we get to this segment and we play the commercials, makes me miss two things. Makes me miss a Bud Light because can't have one while we're recording the show. Will have one immediately after and had one before. But also makes me miss football season. It makes me miss football season so much because Bud Light, as a partner of the NFL, goes all out for football season. And is it too soon to say nostalgic, although the Super Bowl just ended? And we're still in February. It's the last day, but we're still in it. Anyway, Let's head to the Bud Light Easy Takes of the Week. Bud Light Easy Take of the Week number 1. Cade Cunningham is the MVP. You can argue whether he's the front runner, but think of it like this. Anyone else who is in the conversation with him is in danger of not reaching the NBA threshold of that 65 games you need to receive the postseason awards. Nikola Jokic cannot miss a single game. I think SGA has about 11 games. So who else would be in that conversation with him? Jaylen Brown. I don't think Jaylen Brown's numbers really stand out the same way Cade Cunningham's numbers stand out. And if Detroit finishes ahead of Boston, it would be a moot point. Doesn't matter anyway. Look, Jaylen Brown has done an incredible job because most people thought once Jason Tatum got hurt at the end of that series last year, this season would be a wash for the Celtics, and it has not been. But it's also okay if you don't think that he's the MVP because of that, because this other guy is just playing better. Right now, Cade Cunningham averaging 25 points, about 10 assists per game. And if the Pistons finish as the number 1 seed in the East, I don't see how you can give it to anyone else. Detroit was a doormat a few years ago. It's how they ended up with the number 1 pick to get Cade Cunningham. And through his first 2 seasons, you had a lot of people wondering if he was the right choice as the number 1 pick. You had people question a whole lot of things, but it was one thing that I remembered on draft night and just watching how he moved over the course of his rookie season, and whether it was already being a father, there was a level of maturity there. There was a certain sense of him just always being under control, and that's also how he plays. And I thought, no matter what happens, the highs or the lows of this entire thing, this dude is not going to get rattled. So yeah, I do think 25 points per game, just about 10 assists per game, 6 rebounds per game is going to win him the MVP, because the usage rate and the fact that the Pistons run such a heliocentric offense, that just means Cade's the catalyst for everything. I do think that is going to cause an inflation in not just his numbers, but his sense of importance in the offense. And when you are trying to be the MVP, an overinflated sense of importance is literally the only thing that matters. And perhaps more importantly than all of this stuff, he's got the shoe deal. Shoe companies run the marketing. Shoe companies run the narrative. So if Nike is going to put the machine behind Cade Cunningham, I don't think it's a coincidence that as long as he does what he's doing on the court, that he's going to come out as the MVP, because it just helps everyone's bottom line, especially Nike's. If you remove Cade, Detroit is lottery level once again. That's value. But MVP voters also reward dominance and not just dependency. It's a good thing for him, and for Detroit, he has both. Bud Light Easy Take of the Week number 2. VJ Edgecombe is actually the Rookie of the Year. He is. And so if we look at the numbers, I don't know. Well, I do know, and it's pretty obvious why. Me and John have talked about it a lot, but apparently to the American media, it's just a foregone conclusion that it's now a 2-man race between Cooper Flag and Colin Knippel. No matter how many games Cooper Flag misses, no matter how bad their teams are, apparently the only thing that matters is the numbers that they put up, the counting stats. And we're not placing anything else into context. We're not placing VJ's defensive impact into context. We're not placing into context that he's already the best two-way player, that he makes so many winning plays, that his game is already adaptable enough to fit into being sometimes the second option, sometimes the fourth option, but still finding a way to be a force, irrespective of whether he's playing great on the offensive end of the floor or not. We're ignoring the fact that amongst the stars, he was easily the best player out there. Nipple was on the floor. The other dude was on the sideline in a boot or whatever. But Nipple was on the floor and was an afterthought with VJ out there. Oh, so are we just going to make it about the counting stats? Are we just going to make it about raw just points and rebounds and not place any of this into context? Because if VJ was on the Mavericks and they would just say go in there and shoot 40 times a game, he could easily average 23 to 25 points per game. Because that's what he was doing earlier in the season when they just rolled the ball out to him and Tyrese Maxey and say, go get it. If he was playing on a team that had zero expectations like the Hornets, he could do the things that Nipple is doing. But he doesn't have that. He doesn't have that. He's playing 30-plus minutes on a playoff caliber team. He's guarding elite wings on a nightly basis. He's leading in steals. He probably should be on one of the all-defensive teams. Impact, there should be situations, and there was when Scotty Barnes won it. Impact has to mean something. It has to mean something more than just the raw numbers. It has to be, we're not just awarding or rewarding the loudest rookie. It's got to come a point where you reward the most complete rookie. Reward star power. To me, it's actually reminiscent of the argument with Cade because, anyway, we'll see who the first one is to get a shoe deal out of this. Shoe deals control the narratives in the NBA. Bud Light Easy Take of the Week, number 3. Tua is done in Miami. Tua's done. They brought in the Green Bay guys. That unceremonious exit. I honestly thought, you know what, he's still under contract for a year. The quarterback market out there is horrible. There's really no upgrade to be had. Well, I guess that's dependent on whether you consider Kyler Murray to be an upgrade or not. But even that's not a foregone conclusion that the Dolphins have an opportunity to get him or are in the running to get him. The talk in Miami is about Malik Willis. That's what your fan base has to be excited about? After hiring the coach and the GM that look like each other, their bright idea is to bring in the backup quarterback from the place where they just came from? That's it? That's the genius plan? That's what the wheels have set in motion? Okay. Okay. But yeah, I think he's done. I think that relationship has already been severed. I don't think there's any going back to the year when he led the NFL in passing yards and people started to believe in him. I just think people are worried. I think fan bases don't have the same level of patience they had before. I think the NFL has come to a point, particularly with quarterbacks, where you can just retool so quickly. If it's not there, scrap it and move on. And this plan has gone on for a pretty long time. They've been in limbo for a pretty long time. Everybody else is out of there. The coach is out of there. The GM's out of there. It only stands to reason that the quarterback is going to be out of there. You just blow the whole thing up. The biggest star they had on offense is also out of there. So if the whole thing's being blown up, I don't see the sense in keeping Tua around to finish the duration of that contract. Whether you're talking concussion history, whether you're talking about the durability for other injuries, playoff performance, the financial cap hit, there's so many reasons. Just restart the development now, because otherwise, what's the point? Bud Light Easy Take of the Week, number 4. Lamar Jackson has everything he needs. And by that, I just mean I wanted Harbaugh gone. That's it. That's the whole thing. Yeah, sure, upgrades on defense, whatever. As a Ravens fan, I'm happy just not having Harbaugh anymore because I wholeheartedly believe in addition by subtraction. I do believe when coaches or anyone is there for such a long period of time, I think you do lose the locker room. I think that's a very real thing, and I think that's what happened here. So we're ready to go. And also probably going to need another kicker because, boy. Bud Light Easy Take of the Week, number 5. The NFL Combine always teaches us how crazed we are for football as a society. The fact that workouts have become made for TV drama that is absolutely swallowed by the 24-hour news cycle, and so many numbers and meaningless drills are regurgitated as indicators of who is going to be a superstar, who is going to just fill a role. And all of it just seems completely empty and completely useless. I know the act of the combine itself is not useless because when you're putting millions of dollars into athletes, being able to evaluate them is important. I'm talking about how it's become a made-for-TV spectacle, which is kind of shocking. Well, I guess not shocking because football is king. It's the most important sport out there. That's why you have to enjoy it with Bud Light. And we are already anticipating what the winners of next year's sweepstakes are going to get to enjoy with Bud Light. But until then, be sure to still stop in to any Jimmy's Wines and Spirit distributors. Get your 6-packs. Experience Bud Light however you want to until we give you specifics of how you can win again. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Go grab a Bud Light today.
Stafford going to the end zone, reaching up and making the grab.
Bahamas, are you ready for the ultimate Bud Light football experience? Buy 2 6-packs of Bud Light at any Jimmy's Wines and Spirits location or at participating liquor stores, and you're automatically entered to win. You could score an all-expense-paid trip to watch the Dolphins game live. Don't wait. Grab your Bud Light and get in the game today. Bud Light is distributed by Jimmy's Wines and Spirits, who reminds you to drink in moderation.
That'll do it for this episode of The Accredited. Still a big sports weekend going on. Check out some college baseball in the Atlanta Showcase at the Andre Rogers National Stadium. And the big game is tomorrow, Bahamas versus Puerto Rico. I'm calling every game a must-win, so we got to go out there and get this. Not leaving anything to chance, leaving no room for error. Go Bahamas basketball. That's the only one that matters.